Level 5. Welcome back. Level 5 today we're going to work on solving equations with two operations. Make this the title on the next free page in your math notebook, and then do all the stuff you always do so that you're ready to be really concentrated and focused and ready to go. Alright, lots to remind you of today. So this is sort of solving a whole new level. I'm going to start over here. In our beginning level, first four videos, we always solved equations with one operation. So, x times something, or x plus something, or x minus something, or x divided by something. And there was always one operation, and we had two strategies for that. We had a drawing strategy, which will continue, and then we had the inverse operation strategy as well. So we always had one operation in our beginning level first four videos. Now that we're up to your developing level, there's going to start to be two today. There's going to be more than one operation in each equation. Some vocab I need to go back over: a variable, constant, and coefficient. This is from way back early in 6th grade. When you look at an expression like, say, this that has two operations in it, 6 times x plus 10. All three of these things have a name, and you're going to start to hear me use those names again. This one we talked about in the first four levels. This is called a variable. It's an unknown value. The number multiplied by the variable, or how many of the variable we have, that is called a coefficient. So we would say that 6 is the coefficient of x, or coefficient of the variable in this case. And then numbers that are by themselves, not multiplied by the variable, but added on, those are called constants because they don't change. A variable could change. We could say x is 2, we could say x is 3, but constants don't. So coefficient, variable, constant in particular, you're going to start to hear me talk about this word today. That's two things to remind you of. Another is this, from way back probably in 5th grade, you learned to solve expressions or equations with tons of operations in them, and you learn to solve it in a correct order. When you have all of these operations going on, you solve them in this order: G, E, M, S, where G stands for grouping symbols like parentheses and such. E stands for exponents. M stands for multiply and divide. You do those kind of together. And S stands for subtract and add. They're kind of on the same level as well. So if I wanted to figure out what all this equals, I would go in order. It's like the first thing I would do is the grouping symbols. Those make 6. They're in the grouping symbols first. So I have 4 times 6 minus 10 divided by 2 plus 3 to the 3rd power. So now I've done the grouping symbols. The next thing you would do is the exponents. I have one exponent here, 3 to the 3rd power. That's 3 times 3, which is 9, times 3 again. Remember, 3 to the 3rd power means 3 times 3 times 3. So that's 27. Still have 4 times 6 minus 10 divided by 2 plus that. Then I would multiply and divide. I have two of that. I've got multiplying here, and I've got dividing here. When that's the case, you do them in order from left to right. So I would do this one first. 6 times 4 is 24. Take away. I'm also going to just go ahead and do my 10 divided by 2 step. Haven't used the 27. Now I've done multiply and divide, and last is subtract and add. Here again I have both, so I do them in order that they appear from left to right. 24 minus 5 is 19, plus 27 is 46. So all that's going to matter. Gems I need you to remember. Also, these words I taught you back on the last slide, especially constant today. All right, let's get to it. That's a lot to remember, bring back to mind. So let's look at an equation like this, where there are two operations now. That's our new thing today. In our whole developing level series, we're always going to have two operations instead of just one in the equation, and that's going to require some new work as you go. So first, common sense. This isn't a bad one for common sense. I might be able to look at that, and indeed in this one I probably could look at this one and just common sense my way to the answer. If this 3x, if that were 30 plus 9, I'd have 39. So that kind of tells me 3 times 10 would do that. So this one I happen to be able to do common sense. And it's nice when you can, just so you have a starting place. But remember, I promise there's going to be ones very soon that you can't. So I do want you to keep that in mind, that these draw and inverse operation strategies are going to be super important. Okay, so let's get to the strategies because they're each going to involve something brand new today. So I really need you to focus, concentrate, and get a handle on the new part. So let's start with draw. First thing I'm going to do is draw it. So I'm going to draw my seesaw or my scale. So in this case, I have 3 x's and a 9 being added. So there's 3x plus 9 on one side and 39 on the other. Sometimes you're just going to be able to look at this and tell what x is. Like in this case, again, much like the common sense strategy, I don't have a really tough time figuring x out. But I do want to show you on an easy one how to handle this for when you don't. So what's going to be new today, you'll notice I talked in the Connect about constants. This 9 is called a constant. Okay. When you have a constant with your variables, an easy trick to make this really easy to see the answer is to take that constant away. Like, what if only the x's were on this side? It would be a lot easier. So what I'm going to draw is like I can take this 9 off this side, just like imagine pulling it off the scale, except if I want to keep everything balanced, you can even put -9 or take away. I also need to take 9 away on this side. So if I'm going to take this 9 away, to be fair, I've got to take 9 away from here, so because the x's are going to equal the rest. The 9 and the 9 kind of match up, and if I take the 9's away, the x's equal the rest. So I'm going to redraw it now with that 9 taken away. So now all that's left over here is 3x, and 39, if I take that 9 away with this 9, leaves me 30. Now it's really easy to tell what x is. You probably could have told up here that it was 10. But here you can really tell that it's 10. No problem. So that's the new strategy here. Is there's going to be we're going to start to do things in the drawing strategy to make it easier. And so the first thing you can do is you can take the same constant off both sides. If you take that 9 away, as long as you take 9 away here too, you get something very manageable. So that's how you do the drawing strategy with 2 steps. Let's go to inverse operation. So 3x plus 9 equals 39. So what we say in the first 4 levels is look at your variable and do the inverse, right? But the problem now is there's 2 things happening to my variable, not 1. I've got it being multiplied by 3, and I've got 9 being added to it. So I need to undo or inverse both of those. But what order I do it in is going to matter a lot. So the question then becomes, what order do I do it in? The inverse of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. The inverse of adding 9 is subtracting 9. But which one do I do first? And which one do I do second? Here's how you decide. So in a problem where we knew what x was, if we knew x and there was 2 operations, the way we would decide what to do is we would follow Jim's. But this is different because rather than knowing all the numbers and figuring out the answer, we know the answer and we need to figure out one of the numbers in the question. So we go in the opposite order. It's the inverse operation, and we go in the inverse order because we're kind of going backwards and trying to find one of the numbers in the problem. So instead of going in Jim's order, we go in reverse Jim's order. So the first thing I'm going to do is deal with subtraction and addition first. So that tells me I'm going to do this first. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 9 from both sides, which is going to leave me with 3x still here and 30 on this side. Before I continue, look over at the drawing strategy. We actually did the exact same thing. You'll notice here the first thing we did was take away 9 from both sides, and the first thing we did over here was take away 9 from both sides. So we actually did the same thing. It's just a matter of how you prefer to show it. Now I'm ready to have done this. That's done. So next in my reverse gems is to deal with the multiplication and the division. So I'm going to divide by 3 next. So x is being multiplied by 3, the inverse is divide by 3, and x equals 10. Again, I divided by 3 on both sides. That's really what we did here, right? This whole side was going to be 30, and there were 3 x's, so we divided it into 3 parts. We really did the exact same thing here and here. We subtracted 9, then divided by 3, then divided by 3. Okay. Checking is super important, and I think you should do it, but since I'm a bit low on time, I'm going to skip it on this one to make sure we have time to do the we do without rushing you too bad. So go ahead and pause here, write your problem down and your strategies, and unpause when you're ready to go. For me, I could do some work and figure this out with common sense, but it's not immediately obvious to me, so I'm not going to spend any time on it. Eventually, we won't be using the common sense strategy very much anyway, so I'm just going to kind of plow ahead here without it. So let's use the drawing strategy first here. So this is 2 steps, you'll notice, if you even want to write that at the top. 2 steps or 2 operations. That's what's new today. It's probably in your title. So when I draw, there's 4 x's and a 13. And then 49 here. And again, what is x? Well, it's not totally obvious to me. I could do some work and figure it out. But since we're here doing this anyway, let's learn the steps. So what I'm going to do now that I've drawn it, this is called a constant right here, this 13, constant. And what I can do to make this much easier is take that constant off both sides. So I want you to imagine like you're even like picking it up and taking it away. So I'm taking 13 off this side, and to balance it, I'm also taking 13 from the other side because the x's are going to be the rest. So now that I've done that, there's 4 x's. And what's left? 49 minus 13 is 36. Now I can look at those x's and I can kind of say, I see it. I know my multiplication and division tables well enough to know those must be 9s. So x equals 9. And it's so much easier to do once you take the constant away. You can just see it. All right, I'm going to have to go quick on inverse operation to meet time, so make sure you're ready to pause and follow me real carefully. Don't let me blow you away with going too fast, but I do have to kind of hurry. So 2 operations to deal with, right? X is being multiplied by 4, so we're going to divide by 4. And x has 13 added, so we're going to be subtracting 13. The question is, what order do I do those in? Do I divide first, then subtract? Do I subtract first, then divide? So the way we're going to do that is you follow the order of operations gems backwards, because we're trying to find a number in the problem, not trying to find sort of the answer to the problem. So I'm going to subtract and add first. So that's going to be minus 13, minus 13. And again, before I continue, notice that's exactly what we did in the drawing strategy. We took away 13 from both sides there, and we're taking 13 away from both sides here. It's the same thing. So those cancel away. I'm left with 4x equals 36, just like I was left with here. Exact same thing. So now I've done that. Now I'm ready to second multiply and divide. So we divide by 4 and divide by 4, leaving me, it says divided by, not subtract. X equals 9. Got it. Got it. Should totally check. Highly recommend checking, but since I'm out of time here, I'm going to just continue to do that next time. So y'all, this is one of the videos I think you're most likely to want to watch twice. This is a big step from level 4, and I had to go kind of fast. I promise if you watch this video again, this will make more sense, it'll sink in better, and you'll feel more ready for levels 6, 7, 8, and so on after this. If you really feel like you got it, go ahead to your UDOs. If not, never will there be one I think I recommend watching again more than this one. Thanks, y'all.